The Moon Festival was the most anticipated night of the year in the kingdom of Loralis. Every villager, noble and traveler alike, looked forward to it, for it was the night when the full moon touched the Silver Lake, and the Alpha of the Moonclaw clan would choose a partner. The tradition had been followed for centuries, and the Luna dress, a rare gown woven from lunar silk, was the key to being noticed. Alara stood in her small room, the moonlight streaming through the open window, painting her bare walls in silver. Her heart raced as she examined her reflection in the cracked mirror. The Luna dress was perfect, a shimmering cascade of pale blue silk embroidered with tiny threads of silver that caught the light with every movement. It was the dress she had saved for months, sewing and mending it herself with care. Tonight she would wear it and finally step into the world she had longed for. Her older sister, Lysandra, watched from the doorway with narrowed eyes. "That dress, it's too beautiful for you," she said softly, but there was a sharp edge in her voice. "You should leave it to someone worthy." Alara frowned. "It is mine. I earned it. You don't get to decide who is worthy." Lysandra smiled faintly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "We'll see about that." And with a swish of her cloak, she vanished into the shadows of the hallway. Alara shook her head, trying to push away the unease that had settled in her stomach. She had faced her sister's jealousy before, but tonight felt different. Something in the air hummed with tension. The festival wasn't just a celebration. It was a test, a night of destiny. And the Alpha Kale was known for his piercing eyes and unwavering judgment. He could sense fear, courage, and lies alike. The festival grounds were already alive with music, laughter, and the scent of roasting meats and sweet pastries. Lanterns floated in the air, carried by invisible threads of magic casting a soft glow over the cobblestone paths. People moved in clusters, their gowns and cloaks swaying as they whispered and laughed. Alara clutched the Luna dress tightly, adjusting the straps one last time when she realized it was gone. Her heart froze. "Lysandra," she called, her voice trembling. She searched the room frantically, tossing aside her belongings, but the dress had vanished. Panic clawed at her throat. Without the Luna dress, she would not be noticed, and the Alpha might pass her by. A muffled giggle came from the corner. Lysandra stepped out, the stolen dress draped over her arm like a prize. "You've been so careful, little sister," she said, her voice smooth and dangerous. "But I am more ambitious than you are. Perhaps I should wear it tonight." Alara's hands clenched. "Give it back." "You can't." "I can," Lysandra interrupted. "And I will. After all, this is my chance to shine." Before Alara could protest further, Lysandra twirled away, the moonlight catching the silver threads of the Luna dress. Alara sank onto her bed, her chest heaving. She had no backup, no other gown suitable for the festival. She considered leaving entirely, running away to avoid the shame, but deep inside, a stubborn spark of courage refused to die. With a sigh, she chose the only dress she had left, a simple gown of soft gray linen. It was plain, barely catching the light, but it was all she could wear. Alara tightened the straps and wrapped herself in a small cloak to hide her shame as she stepped into the cool night. The festival was even more magical than she remembered. The Silver Lake shimmered under the moon, reflecting the thousands of stars above. Music and laughter filled the air, and fireflies danced like floating lanterns. The crowd had gathered in a wide circle, leaving a clear space in the center for the Alpha to stand. Alara felt a pang of envy as she watched her sister glide through the crowd, the stolen Luna dress hugging her figure perfectly. Heads turned, whispers spread, and many eyes were on Lysandra. But then the music changed, a deep, resonant tone that silenced the crowd and drew every gaze toward the center. Kale stepped into the circle. He was tall, his presence commanding, his silver-gray eyes scanning the crowd with a quiet intensity that sent shivers down spines. His cloak shimmered with faint patterns of moonlight, and his expression was unreadable. Every festival attendee held their breath. This was the moment they had been waiting for. One by one, the women in Luna dresses were summoned. Kyle's gaze lingered on each for a moment before moving on. The crowd whispered and nudged each other, speculating who would be chosen. When his eyes finally landed on Alara, who was hiding in her simple gray gown, a hush fell over the crowd. She felt the air around her thicken, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. The last thing she expected was for Kale to notice her. After all, she wasn't wearing the dress that was supposed to signal destiny. Kale took a step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. Every word in the festival, every tradition suddenly seemed to fade away. He stopped directly in front of her, and the crowd held its collective breath. Ilara. The sound of her name on his lips made her knees weak. It wasn't the polite ceremonial voice she had heard during previous festivals. It was something deeper, something that carried weight, command, and recognition. The murmurs around her grew frantic. Lysandra froze mid-step, her triumphant smile faltering. The stolen Luna dress no longer seemed to matter. All eyes were on Ilara, who stood frozen in shock, her simple gown seeming to glow with a light that wasn't there moments before. Kyle's gaze softened, ever so slightly, though it did not lose its intensity. "Step forward," he said, his voice calm yet undeniable. "Tonight, destiny calls not the one who seeks glory, but the one it chooses." Ilara's hand shook. She wanted to flee, to hide her unworthiness, but some invisible force rooted her to the spot. Every fiber of her being hummed with a strange energy, as if the moon itself whispered encouragement. Lysandra's face twisted with anger and disbelief. She opened her mouth to protest, but Kale's gaze cut through her like a sword. She realized with growing horror that her plans had failed. The Alpha had seen through her ambition and deceit. Ilara took a trembling step forward, her eyes never leaving Kale's. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a sister, not as a quiet girl, but as someone with power and purpose. Something in her chest lifted, a light she had not known existed. Kale extended his hand. "Come with me. Tonight is not about appearances, but truth." The crowd erupted into whispers and murmurs of awe, but Ilara barely noticed. Her world had narrowed to the man before her, his presence both terrifying and magnetic. She took his hand, stepping fully into the circle, feeling a strange warmth spread through her despite the cool night air. As they moved together toward the center of the festival, Lysandra's fury boiled over. She whispered threats under her breath, but Ilara no longer heard them. Something had changed. The Luna dress might have been stolen, but destiny had a plan of its own. For Ilara, the night had begun in shame and fear. Now it unfolded into a journey of discovery, courage, and perhaps unexpected longing. The moon shone brighter over the silver lake, reflecting the shimmer in her eyes and the unknown path that awaited. And as Kale's hand held hers, firm and unwavering, she realized one undeniable truth. The festival, the Alpha, and even the stolen dress were no longer the center of her fate. She herself was. The night was just beginning, and Ilara had no idea how far it would take her. But one thing was certain. The Alpha had called her name, and nothing, neither jealousy, fear, nor tradition, could undo it. Cliffhanger. As they approached the sacred circle, a hush fell over the crowd. Ilara felt a strange pull in her chest, a shiver that wasn't entirely fear. Somewhere in the shadows, Lysandra was plotting, and Kale's gaze, sharp as a blade, hinted at trials that would test more than courage, perhaps even the heart itself. The moon hung high over the festival, casting silver light on the sacred circle at the center of the kingdom. Ilara's hand trembled slightly as she followed Kyle through the crowd. Every pair of eyes in Lyrelis seemed fixed on them, yet she felt as if the world had narrowed to only the Alpha and the path that lay ahead. Kale's steps were deliberate, each one measured, exuding authority that commanded attention without a word. His cloak shimmered faintly in the moonlight, the threads of silver catching the glow like ripples on the lake. Ilara felt a strange warmth in her chest, a mix of fear, anticipation, and something she could not name. "Do not be afraid," Kale said quietly, his voice low yet firm. "Tonight is not a test of beauty or wealth. It is a test of strength, of heart, and of truth. Step forward and you will see." Ilara nodded, trying to steady her racing thoughts. The crowd's whispers faded into a soft hum in her ears as she followed him toward the Moonclaw clan's sacred grove, just beyond the festival grounds. The path was lined with silver lanterns that floated gently above the ground, illuminating twisted trees whose leaves shimmered with a faint magical glow. "You will need to trust me completely," Kyle said, "and you must be willing to face what lies within yourself." Ilara swallowed hard. I will try." Kale's eyes softened just for a moment and then returned to their usual piercing intensity. "Try is not enough. You must act. Courage does not come from wishing. It comes from doing. The grove was quiet, almost unnervingly so. The soft rustle of leaves sounded louder than it should, and Alara could feel the pulse of magic in the air. The trees seemed alive, their shadows twisting and reaching as though testing her resolve. Kyle stopped in the center of the grove and turned to face her fully. The Luna dress is more than a gown. It is a symbol, yes, but it also carries power, power that awakens only in those who are chosen. Tonight you will see why it chose you, not your sister. Alara glanced down at her simple gray gown and felt a pang of doubt. How could she possibly be the one chosen? The dress she had prepared for months had been stolen, yet Kale's gaze held no question of her worth. Before she could voice her fear, Kale extended a hand. Step into the circle, he instructed. The ground beneath them glowed faintly, silver runes appearing in a circle around their feet. This is the trial of courage. You must face it to move forward. Only then can you understand the strength within you. Alara's heart thumped wildly. She stepped into the circle, feeling a strange warmth spread through her as if the moon itself was acknowledging her presence. The air thickened, shimmering around her, and the forest seemed to fade. In its place was a space of shifting shadows and soft silver light. Do not fear what you see, Kale said. Fear is the first obstacle. You must look and you must act. Suddenly a shape emerged from the mist, a shadowy beast larger than any wolf she had ever seen. Its eyes glowed a pale silver, and its movements were fluid and unnervingly intelligent. Ilara's breath caught in her throat. She had never encountered anything like it. Step forward, Kale commanded. Face it. You cannot hide. Ilara's instincts screamed to run, to flee, but something deep within her stirred. She remembered the Luna dress she had worn in secret practice, the hours she had spent preparing herself not for admiration but for courage. She straightened her shoulders and stepped forward, her hands trembling but determined. The beast lunged. Ilara raised her hands instinctively, and a strange light flickered around her fingers. The air hummed with energy, and the shadowy creature recoiled, snarling as if recognizing a force it could not touch. Kyle's eyes narrowed, studying her intently. Do you see it? He asked. The power was within you all along. The dress only awakens what is already there. Ilara took a deep breath, focusing. The light around her grew stronger, shimmering in the silver moonlight. She did not fully understand what she was doing, but she felt an unspoken connection to the magic in the grove, to the moon above, and even to Kale beside her. With a firm step, she moved toward the beast, and it dissipated into mist, leaving only a trace of silver smoke behind. Kale exhaled, a rare softness in his gaze. Well done. Few ever succeed on their first attempt. Ilara's legs shook, but she smiled, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her. I didn't know I could. That is the point, Kyle said, his voice calm but commanding. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is action in spite of it. And you, Ilara, have acted. A rustling in the shadows made her glance toward the tree line. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw Lysandra watching, her eyes gleaming with jealousy and fury. Ilara shook the thought away, trying to focus on Kyle and the strange, intoxicating energy that seemed to flow between them. Kyle stepped closer, the silver light of the grove reflecting off his cloak. The trial is not over, he said. You have faced the first test, but courage alone is not enough. You must also face your fears, your doubts, and the shadows of your past. Ilara nodded, her determination growing. I want to try. I want to understand. Kale's gaze softened once more. Then listen carefully. The Luna dress carries a legacy. It was created centuries ago by the Moon Guardians, women of great wisdom and strength. It chooses only those who can balance power with compassion, courage with humility. Tonight you have shown a spark, but the flame must grow. The forest seemed to shift around them, silver light weaving through the trees like threads of magic. Ilara felt her pulse quicken. Every step she took seemed amplified, every breath filled with both anticipation and fear. Kyle extended his hand again, and she took it without hesitation. Together, they moved deeper into the grove, where ancient stones lay in a circle, etched with runes that glowed faintly under the moon. Here, he said, you will learn what it means to be chosen. Ilara's eyes widened at the sight of the runes. They were older than any building in the kingdom, older than the festival itself. Their silver glow pulsed like a heartbeat, resonating with a rhythm that made her chest ache with both wonder and apprehension. Close your eyes, Kyle instructed. Listen to the moon, to the wind, to your own heart. The answers are not in what you see, but in what you feel. Ilara obeyed, taking a deep breath. The grove seemed to breathe with her, the rune's pulse syncing with her heartbeat. A warmth spread through her body, unlike anything she had felt before, as if the moonlight itself was wrapping her in a protective embrace. Suddenly, a vision appeared behind her closed eyelids. Lysandra, wearing the stolen Luna dress, standing on a cliff above a stormy sea. The dress flared with silver light, but her face was twisted with anger, not courage. Ilara realized that the dress alone did not make someone worthy. It was the heart and choices of the wearer that mattered. When she opened her eyes, Kale was watching her closely, his expression unreadable yet intense. "Do you understand now?" he asked. Ilara nodded slowly. "Yes. It's not the dress that makes someone chosen. It's the courage, the heart, the truth." Kyle's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "Good. Then you are ready for the next step. But beware, knowing is one thing. Acting upon it is another. The shadows that seek to undermine you are closer than you think." Ilara swallowed hard, sensing the weight of his words. She felt stronger, braver, yet a knot of worry tightened in her chest. Lysandra's envy, Kale's expectations, and the mysterious magic of the Luna dress combined into a challenge far greater than anything she had faced before. For a moment, she allowed herself a small smile, feeling the thrill of the unknown. She was not just a quiet girl anymore. She was someone being called by destiny, chosen by a force older than the festival, older than her sister's schemes. Kale's gaze held hers, steady and unwavering. "Come," he said. "There is more to learn, and the night is not yet done." Ilara followed him, her steps lighter now, filled with newfound resolve. The moon shone brighter above, casting its silver light on her path, illuminating both the trials to come and the bond growing between her and the Alpha who had called her name. Cliffhanger. As they moved deeper into the grove, a sudden chill swept through the air. From the shadows, a whisper carried her name, soft, mocking, and undeniably familiar. Ilara froze. Somewhere close, Lysandra was plotting, and the shadows themselves seemed to watch, waiting for her next move. The grove had grown quieter, the silver light from the moon filtering softly through the twisting branches. The air felt alive, carrying the faint scent of ancient magic, and Ilara could feel the pulse of the forest around her. Every step she took seemed to echo with purpose, as if the land itself acknowledged her presence. Kale led her to a secluded part of the grove, where the trees arched like a cathedral over a circle of worn stones. Intricate runes, older than memory, were carved into their surfaces, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "Here," Kyle said, his voice low. "You will understand the true nature of the Luna dress and why it has chosen you." Ilara studied the stones, feeling a strange hum resonate in her chest. "Why me?" she asked, almost in a whisper. "Why not my sister?" Kale's gray eyes were thoughtful. "The Luna dress does not choose based on ambition or envy. It chooses those whose hearts are aligned with courage, compassion, and the willingness to face the unknown. It is not simply a gown, it is a legacy." "A legacy?" Ilara repeated, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know if I am worthy." "You are," Kale said firmly. "But you must see it for yourself." He reached out, touching the glowing runes. The light shifted and a vision appeared in the air before them. Ilara gasped. She saw a woman radiant and strong, wearing a Luna dress that gleamed with lunar light. She moved gracefully through a battlefield, her gaze unwavering, commanding respect not through fear but through wisdom and courage. Ilara felt a strange pull toward the vision. The woman's power seemed familiar, as though it resonated deep within her own soul. "This is the first moon guardian," Kyle explained. "She created the Luna dresses from lunar silk, infused with essence of the moon itself. They were meant to awaken strength and truth in the one who wears them. Every generation, one is chosen to inherit that gift." Ilara's eyes widened. "So the dress, it's not just a symbol?" "No," Kale replied. "It is a key, a test, a bond, and it can be dangerous if worn by someone who lacks the heart to wield it. That is why your sister failed. She wanted the glory, but she could not hold the responsibility." Ilara lowered her gaze, processing the weight of his words. She had always thought the dress was beautiful, magical, yes, but she had never imagined it carried such power. She felt a shiver run through her, equal parts fear and awe. Before she could speak further, A rustle came from the edge of the grove. Shadows shifted and Lysandra emerged, her eyes glinting with anger. "So this is where you are hiding," she said, her voice sharp. "I see Kyle has found you after all." Ilara's heart sank. "Lysandra, you can't—" "I can," Lysandra interrupted, stepping closer. "And I will. That dress, the trials, even Kale's attention. It should have been mine." Kale moved slightly in front of Ilara, his presence shielding her. "Enough," he said, his tone calm but commanding. "Leave this place, Lysandra. You have made your choices and you must face the consequences." Lysandra's lips twisted into a bitter smile. "Consequences? I am only beginning." She waved her hand and a shimmering veil of shadow rose around her. The runes on the stones flickered in response and a strange chill swept through the grove. Ilara's hands trembled. The shadows seemed to press in, twisting and moving like living things. She felt fear clawing at her chest, but something deeper stirred within. A quiet, steady flame that refused to be snuffed out. The Luna dress, though plain in appearance, hummed with latent power, and she felt its warmth spread through her. Kale's eyes met hers. "Do not let fear control you. Remember what you have learned. Courage is action, not absence of fear." Ilara drew in a deep breath. Closing her eyes for a moment, she focused on the warmth of the dress, on the pulse of the grove, and on the presence of Kale beside her. When she opened her eyes, the shadows recoiled, unable to touch her. With a surge of confidence, she stepped forward. "I will not be afraid," she said, her voice steady. "You cannot control me, Lysandra. You will not harm me or the legacy I carry." The shadows wavered, and Lysandra's smile faltered. The magic that had seemed so threatening now seemed to bend against her. Ilara could feel the Luna dress responding to her resolve, the silver threads gleaming faintly even in the darkness. Kyle nodded approvingly. "Good, you are beginning to understand. The power you have is not given by the dress, it is awakened within you. But understanding is not enough. You must learn to control it or it may consume you." Ilara's heart raced. "Control it? How?" Kale extended his hand. "Come with me. There is a place where the Guardians trained, long before this kingdom existed. There you will learn not just to wield the dress's power, but to master it. It will test your courage, your heart, and your spirit. Are you ready?" Ilara hesitated for a moment, glancing back at Lysandra. The older girl's shadow had begun to fade into the trees, but she could feel her sister's resentment lingering, like a cold whisper in the air. I'm ready," she said at last. Together they walked deeper into the grove. The trees arched higher, their leaves shimmering with silver light, forming a tunnel that seemed to lead to another world. The air grew warmer, filled with the scent of wildflowers and the faint hum of magic. It was beautiful, otherworldly, and Ilara felt a strange peace settle over her. Kale finally stopped before a set of ancient stone steps, carved into the side of a small hill. "This is where the Moon Guardians trained. Few humans have ever been here. Few even dare to try. But you, Ilara, are not like others. You have courage, heart, and something else. Something rare." Ilara looked up at him, her eyes wide. "Something else?" Kale's gaze softened, but the intensity remained. "Trust," he said simply. "The Luna dress has chosen you because it sensed it. You can be trusted to face the darkness not just for yourself, but for the kingdom. That is the gift and the responsibility of this dress." Ilara swallowed, feeling the weight of his words. She had never thought of herself as special, but Kale's conviction in her stirred a confidence she had never known. The fear of the festival, the shame of the stolen dress, even the jealousy of her sister, all of it seemed to melt away, leaving only the path ahead. Kale led her up the stone steps to a plateau where a circle of stones awaited, each engraved with silver runes that pulsed with soft light. The air was thick with energy, and Ilara could feel the dress respond, humming faintly against her skin. "Place your hands on the stones," Kyle instructed. "Feel their energy. Let it guide you, not control you." Ilara obeyed, placing her palms on the smooth, glowing surface. At first nothing happened, but then a wave of warmth spread through her body. She felt her heartbeat sync with the pulsing of the runes, and a vision appeared before her eyes. She saw herself, not as a quiet girl, but as someone strong, courageous, and capable of facing any challenge. She saw Lysandra angry but powerless, and Kale guiding her with a steady hand. When the vision faded, Ilara opened her eyes, feeling a surge of clarity. I understand," she whispered. "The dress. It's never just about wearing it. It's about becoming it, becoming what it represents, Kale nodded. Exactly. And that is why it chose you, Alara. But remember, power without control is dangerous. You must train, learn, and trust yourself fully. A rustle in the shadows reminded her that Lysandra was still watching, plotting, and waiting. Ilara felt a flicker of unease, but it was tempered by the newfound strength in her chest. Whatever her sister tried next, she knew she would not be afraid. Kale's gaze softened again, and for the first time there was a faint smile on his lips. You are ready for the next trial. It will not be easy, but you are not alone. Trust in yourself and in me. Alara nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation and determination. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time she felt capable of facing it. She was no longer just a girl whose dress had been stolen. She was chosen. She was powerful. And she was ready to discover just how far her courage and her heart could take her. Cliffhanger. As they prepared to leave the grove, a sudden flash of shadow darted between the trees. Ilara turned, sensing movement, and caught only a glimpse of Lysandra's eyes, cold, calculating, and filled with malice. The next challenge was coming, and Ilara knew it would test not just her courage, but the bond forming between her and the Alpha. The moon shone like a silver crown over the jagged cliffs of Leralis, reflecting on the lake below. The festival had long ended, but the kingdom felt alive with quiet energy, as if the night itself were holding its breath. Ilara stood beside Kale at the edge of the cliffs, the wind tugging at her cloak and hair. Her heart thumped with anticipation, both from the beauty of the moonlit night and the uncertainty that lay ahead. Kyle's gaze was fixed on the horizon, though Ilara knew he was aware of her presence. The next trial is not in the grove nor in any stone circle, he said, his voice low. It is here in the open where the truth of courage and heart is revealed. Are you ready to face it? Ilara nodded, though a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. The previous trials had tested her courage, but she now understood that this would test more than that. It would test her heart, her choices, and her ability to stand against shadows both seen and unseen. As if in answer to his words, a sudden shimmer appeared across the cliffs. From the dark edges of the forest, Lysandra emerged, her eyes glinting with fury. The stolen Luna dress was gone now, but she wore a cloak of dark energy, flowing like liquid shadow around her form. She moved with grace, but every step radiated malice. Ilara, Lysandra said, her voice cutting like ice. Do you really think you can take what is mine? The Alpha, the dress, even the legacy, everything belongs to me. Kale stepped slightly forward, his presence a protective barrier between Ilara and her sister. Enough, he said, his voice calm but firm. Ilara has proven herself. Your anger will not change that. Lysandra's lips twisted into a bitter smile. We shall see, she whispered, lifting her hands. Dark tendrils of energy slithered from her fingers, snaking toward Ilara like living shadows. Ilara felt a cold shiver run through her, but she remembered Kale's lessons. Courage is not absence of fear, it is acting despite it. She drew a deep breath, feeling the faint pulse of the Luna dress against her skin. Its threads shimmered in the moonlight, glowing softly as if acknowledging her resolve. Kale extended his hand. Focus on your strength. I am here, but this is your trial, Ilara. You must face it and control it yourself. Ilara nodded, her fingers brushing against the silver threads of the dress. Closing her eyes, she concentrated on the warmth within her, on the courage that had carried her this far. When she opened them, the shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing the power stirring inside her. With a clear, steady voice, she spoke. You will not harm me, Lysandra. This power is not yours to take. The shadows lunged, but Ilara raised her hands and a silver light burst from her palms. It spread outward in a dome of shimmering energy, enveloping her and Kyle. The tendrils of darkness hissed and twisted but could not penetrate the light. Ilara felt a surge of confidence, her heart steady and strong. Kale's eyes softened, admiration and respect flickering in his gaze. Well done, he said. You are learning quickly. The Luna dress does not give power. It awakens what is already inside you. Lysandra's face twisted with frustration. This cannot be. How can a girl who wears nothing but courage and truth stand against me? Because strength is not measured by envy or ambition, Kale said, stepping closer. It is measured by heart, by loyalty, and by the willingness to protect even when it is difficult. Ilara felt her chest swell with pride. She had always doubted herself, always felt overshadowed by her sister's ambition, but now, in the presence of Kale and under the moon's silver gaze, she felt something new. Confidence, power, and clarity. She was not just a girl chosen by a dress. She was becoming the person the dress had always intended her to be. Lysandra's shadowed magic surged, growing stronger. The dark energy wrapped around her, forming a swirling vortex aimed directly at Ilara. The wind howled, carrying the scent of ozone and something ancient. Ilara's heart pounded, but she refused to step back. She raised her hands again, letting the light from the Luna dress flow through her. The light met the darkness, and for a moment, the world seemed suspended between silver and shadow. Then, with a sound like the tearing of silk, the darkness fractured and dissipated, retreating into the night. Lysandra stumbled backward, her cloak of shadows unraveling as the power of the Luna dress protected Ilara. Kale stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. You have faced not just your fear, but her envy and malice. That is the true trial of courage, standing firm in your own truth when others try to sway you. Ilara's breathing slowed. It was not just me, she said, glancing at Kale. You helped me. Kyle shook his head slightly, though his eyes held warmth. I guide you, yes, but you faced it. The Luna dress recognizes that, and so do I. Ilara looked down at the glowing threads of her gown. She felt a connection, a sense of belonging and purpose. For the first time, she realized that her destiny was not determined by her sister's jealousy, the festival's expectations, or even the Alpha's choice. It was determined by her courage, her heart, and her actions. Lysandra, defeated but not broken, retreated into the shadows. Her eyes lingered on Ilara, filled with anger and a promise of future schemes. This is not over, she hissed. Kale's gaze followed her retreating figure, his expression unreadable. She will try again, he said. But for now, you have proven yourself. The choice is mine, but it is not just about tradition or ceremony. It is about truth. Ilara's heart fluttered, a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. She had felt the power of the Luna dress, faced her sister's malice, and learned to trust herself. But the thought of Kale's words, the choice he would make, made her chest tighten. She had survived the trials, but now came the moment that mattered most. Kale stepped closer, his silver-gray eyes locking onto hers. The wind tugged at his cloak, and the moonlight glinted off the intricate pattern stitched into it. Ilara, he said, his voice calm but intense, I must make my choice. The Alpha selects not only a partner, but someone whose heart and spirit align with the legacy of the Luna dress. Ilara swallowed, feeling her hands tremble slightly. She had trained, learned, and discovered her strength. Yet now, standing before Kale, she felt vulnerable, exposed not by fear but by hope. He extended his hand toward her, and Ilara's breath caught. Will you step forward, knowing that your path will not be easy, that responsibility and trials will follow, but that your courage has earned this moment? Tears prickled at the corners of her eyes, not of sadness but of overwhelming emotion. She nodded slowly, stepping toward him, feeling the silver threads of the dress shimmer as if affirming her choice. Kale's expression softened, and for the first time a faint, approving smile touched his lips. Then I choose you, he said, his voice carrying across the cliffs and over the silver lake below. Not for tradition, not for ceremony, but for who you are and who you will become. A hush fell over the cliffs. The wind stilled for a moment, the silver light of the moon reflecting on the lake in perfect clarity. Ilara felt a rush of emotion, relief, pride, and an unspoken connection to Kale that went beyond words. She had been chosen not for a stolen dress, not for beauty or ambition, but for her courage, her heart, and her truth. Kale's hand brushed hers, a firm and grounding touch. The trials are not over, he said quietly. But for tonight you have proven yourself. The Luna dress has awakened, and so have you. Ilara's chest swelled with confidence, her fear replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. She glanced at the horizon where the first hints of dawn were beginning to shimmer, and she realized that her journey had only just begun. Cliffhanger. From the shadows beyond the cliffs, a faint shimmer of dark energy flickered, Lysandra's promise of future schemes. Ilara knew the battles ahead would test her heart, her courage, and the bond forming with the Alpha. But as she felt the warmth of his hand and the glow of the Luna dress, she understood one truth. She was no longer a girl chosen by chance. She was the one who had chosen herself. Dawn was breaking over Lyralis, painting the sky with streaks of silver and rose. The festival grounds lay quiet now, empty tents swaying gently in the morning breeze. Ilara stood at the edge of the cliffs, the Luna dress glowing faintly in the early light. Beside her, Kyle's presence radiated calm strength, grounding her even as her heart raced. The night's trials had left their mark. She could still feel the echo of her courage vibrating through her chest, the memory of facing shadows both literal and within herself. But the moment of choice had passed, and with Kale's decision, a new chapter had begun, one that would challenge her heart, her spirit, and the very essence of her destiny. "Ilara," Kyle said, his voice quiet, yet carrying the weight of command and care. "The Luna dress has awakened fully. Its power is yours now, not to wield recklessly, but to guide and protect. You are not just chosen. You are a guardian." Ilara's eyes widened at the word, feeling the weight and honor of it. She had always believed in small acts of courage and quiet strength, never imagining that her journey could lead to this. Yet now, standing in the silver light of dawn, she understood the truth of her own heart. "A guardian," she whispered. I will do my best." Kyle smiled faintly, his gray eyes reflecting the rising sun. "I know you will, and I will stand by your side not just as Alpha, but as someone who trusts you and believes in you." The words made Ilara's chest tighten. She had trained, learned, and fought, not for glory, not for approval, but for herself. Yet now the bond forming between them was undeniable, subtle yet profound, like the silver threads in her dress binding her courage to the moonlight. But the calm was broken by a familiar shadow. From the edge of the cliffs, Lysandra appeared, her figure cloaked in darkness, her eyes burning with malice and envy. She had recovered from the failures of the night before, and now her ambition had grown sharper, colder. "You think this ends here?" Lysandra hissed, her voice carrying across the cliffs. "The dress, the Alpha, none of it belongs to you, Ilara. I will take everything, and you will regret standing in my way." Ilara's heart pounded, but she stood firm. She could feel the Luna dress thrumming with power, responding to her courage and to the truth she had claimed for herself. Kale's hand brushed against hers, a grounding touch that reminded her she was not alone. "You have your chance, Lysandra," Kale said, stepping forward. "But I warn you, the Luna dress recognizes heart and courage, not envy. Your shadow cannot overcome her light." The wind rose suddenly, carrying with it the scent of wildflowers and storm. Lysandra raised her hands, summoning a vortex of dark energy, twisting it into jagged shapes aimed directly at Ilara. The world seemed to tremble as the clash of magic began. Silver light against black shadows, courage against envy. Ilara inhaled deeply. She could feel the energy of the dress flowing through her, wrapping around her like a protective cocoon. She closed her eyes, grounding herself in the lessons Kale had taught her. Trust in your strength. Act despite fear and let your heart guide your choices. Opening her eyes, she raised her hands and a brilliant silver dome expanded outward, meeting Lysandra's darkness head-on. The clash sent ripples of energy through the cliffs, bending the trees and sending loose stones tumbling down to the lake below. "Enough," Kale commanded, his voice resonating like steel tempered in silver. "Ilara, trust yourself fully." Ilara felt the truth of his words echo in her soul. It was not the dress that held the power. It was her courage, her choices, and her willingness to stand firm. The silver light surged from her, growing stronger, intertwining with the moonlight that still lingered in the early dawn. Lysandra screamed, her dark energy unraveling, unable to touch the strength Ilara had claimed for herself. With one final surge, Ilara pushed the light forward, dispersing the shadows completely. The wind stilled, the cliffs quieted, and a profound silence fell over the kingdom. When Ilara opened her eyes fully, Lysandra had retreated into the forest, her expression a mixture of fury and disbelief. She had been defeated, not by force alone, but by the truth and courage that radiated from Ilara. Kale stepped closer, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. "You have done more than survive, Ilara. You have risen, faced the shadows, and claimed the destiny that was always yours. The Luna dress has chosen rightly." Ilara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a mix of relief, pride, and something deeper, something she had not expected. She looked at Kale, her voice barely above a whisper. I couldn't have done it without you." Kyle shook his head, his expression gentle yet firm. "You did this yourself. I guided, yes, but the strength, the courage, and the heart, That was yours. Remember that. Always. A moment of silence passed between them, heavy with unspoken emotions. The world felt still yet vibrant, as though acknowledging the bond that had formed between the Alpha and the guardian of the Luna dress. Elara glanced down at her gown, now glowing faintly with the morning light. She felt the threads of silver pulse in rhythm with her heartbeat, a reminder that courage and truth could shine even in the darkest of times. She had begun as a girl whose dress had been stolen, but she stood now as someone who had claimed her destiny, her strength and her voice. Cale's eyes met hers, his gaze steady, full of something unspoken yet powerful. "The trials are over, Elara," he said. "But the journey is only beginning. Together we will protect this kingdom and the legacy of the Moon Guardians. Together we will face whatever comes next." Elara's chest swelled with a mixture of anticipation and peace. She had faced fear, envy, and shadows within herself and in her sister. She had discovered courage, claimed her place, and formed a bond that went beyond words. And now, standing beside Cale, she knew that her path was no longer uncertain. It was one of purpose, strength, and the beginnings of something extraordinary. The sun rose higher, casting gold and silver across the cliffs and lake. Birds began to stir, their songs echoing across the kingdom. Elara and Cale stood side by side, watching the day begin, feeling the quiet power of the Luna dress and the unspoken connection that had grown between them. Cale finally spoke, his voice soft, carrying a hint of warmth that made Elara's heart skip. "You were brave, Elara. You trusted yourself, and in doing so you have awakened not only the dress but the truth of who you are. Remember this feeling. It will guide you through every trial to come." Elara nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle into her heart. "I will," she said. I promise." For a long moment they simply stood together, letting the quiet of the morning and the soft glow of the Luna dress wrap around them. And in that silence, Elara understood something profound. Courage was not only facing darkness, it was claiming your destiny, choosing your heart, and standing firm in your truth, no matter what others might try to take from you. The lake below shimmered, reflecting the silver threads of her gown and the rising sun. Somewhere in the distance she knew Lysandra was watching, plotting, perhaps waiting for another chance. But Elara no longer felt fear. She felt power, purpose, and the certainty that she would face any shadow, any trial, with courage and truth. Cale turned slightly, his gaze meeting hers, steady and unwavering. The bond between them was clear now, quiet yet undeniable, like the moon's silver light over the cliffs. "Elara," he said, "the legacy of the Luna dress has begun anew with you. Stand proud, Guardian. Stand with me." Elara lifted her chin, feeling the strength in her heart, the warmth of the dress and the silent promise of the Alpha beside her. "I will," she said, her voice firm, echoing across the cliffs. "I will stand." As the morning sun rose higher, the kingdom of Leralis seemed to glow with new light. The trials had ended, the shadows had been faced, and a new guardian had claimed her place. Elara's journey was just beginning. But she knew this truth with absolute certainty. Courage, heart, and choice could overcome any darkness. And in the quiet strength she felt, she knew that together with Cale, the Alpha, they could face anything the world might bring. The wind whispered through the cliffs, carrying a soft promise, a promise of new beginnings, of strength and of a bond forged in courage, trust, and heart. And under the rising sun, Elara and Cale took the first steps into that new day, ready to face destiny, together.